Dr. Sonam is currently working as an assistant professor in PDM. She also worked in Amarjyoti as an assistant professor. She is an active researcher in field of women health, and she is exclusively handling the PCOS cases. So now I request Dr. Sonam to take over the session and enlighten us.
Thank you, Savita ma'am, for giving the opportunity to speak on this, my favorite topic, that is PCOS. Yeah, without any wasting time, I'll be starting with my presentation right now.
Okay. It's visible, Sonam.
Yes. Yeah. I just on the slideshow first. Am I audible to everyone right there?
Yeah, you are audible, Sonam.
Yeah. We'll be discussing about PCOS today. Lose it with exercise, the system. PCOS and PCOD plays a very important role in female life, and they have a major difference. PCOD is different and PCOS is completely different. PCOS, it is a reproductive disorder which is characterized by some of the features like enlarged sclerosclerostic ovaries, menstrual abnormalities or disturbances, obesity, infertility, and hirsutism. Hirsutism, excessive hair growth. Steele and Leventhal was the one who reported the syndrome, and therefore it is also known as Steele-Leventhal syndrome. So coming to the worldwide proportions of PCOS, the prevalence according to the different diagnostic criteria of PCOS, that is the first is NIH, that is National Institute of Health. Second is Rotterdam criteria, and third is Androgen Access Society criteria. So according to that, the proportion of PCOS is 6%, 10%, and 10%. But some of the authors have calculated their proportions according to the severe symptoms like excessive hair growth, higher androgen, polycystic ovaries. And they found the symptoms were 11%, 28%, and 15%. But Indian Council of Medical Research have found the prevalence of PCOS to be 12.2. And the prevalence is high in cosmopolitan cities such as Mumbai, that is 22.5, Tamil Nadu 24, Bangalore 23.8, and Andhra Pradesh 15.4. The reason behind so much high prevalence in these cities has found to be the poor lifestyle and the dietary modifications. Maximum prevalence of PCOS was seen in between the adolescence group, that is 15 to 20 years of age, and least in the group of 35 to 40 years of age. Same the reason because of the lifestyle and the dietary habits behind it. PCOS is one of the most common causes of infertility, though it has so many other complications, but infertility is the main complication. So a 3.7 to 25.5 chance of occurrence in women is currently the prevalence. Coming to its symptoms, there are some minor symptoms and there are some major symptoms. Coming to the minor symptoms first, these are irregular periods or cycle, that is more than 35 days. Anovulation, this is a severe symptom, that is which means it is not ovulating. Multiple follicles on your ovaries on ultrasound, which is currently not required for the diagnosis. Insulin resistance, diabetes or blood sugar issues. Acne, that is specifically around mouth, chin, jawline, chest, and upper back. Hair loss, that is thinning on the head, that is also known as acanthosis necrosis. Hair growth in unwanted places, example chin, upper lip, and chest. Anxiety, depression, mood swings, fatigue, low libido, cravings, weight gain, specifically around the middle. But that is not a prominent feature because of the patients that I have seen, they were not obese. So we cannot say that all the PCOS patients are obese right now. Blood tests show high LH-FSH ratio or excess of androgens. To understand PCOS, we need to connect the causes and the signs and symptoms behind it. Signs and symptoms we have already discussed, where there are few more symptoms of it, that is in the head, that is dandruff, male pattern baldness, depression, face excessive hair growth, skin dark patches specifically on the neck area, abdomen, weight gain, pelvis, thickening of wall of the uterus, and the polycystic ovaries, which we can easily see on ultrasound. Coming to their causes, there are so many hormonal alterations according to that. First, there is increased level of GnRH. That will lead to increased level of luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. That will increase the insulin resistance and the diabetes mellitus. That will further can increase to weight gain, skin changes, and fungal infection. But the weight gain is not a prominent feature. May occur or may not occur. Next comes follicles do not mature. If follicles are not maturing, there is anovulation. That means there is no ovulation because there is no menstruation. Next, there is increased level of androgen and increased level of testosterone. So if the male hormone is increasing in a female body, it will lead to changes like extra hair growth, baldness, and everything. So an estimated 8 to 10% of women of reproductive age are affected by PCOS. Excessive sweating, fatigue, unwanted hair growth or thinning hair loss, that is, these all are related to the hormonal alterations according to that. Weight gain, infertility, altered mood, poor sleep, depression, and irregular periods. PCOS can affect everything. We see things that are minor symptoms like irregular menstrual cycle, infertility, and excessive hair growth. We don't see the depression symptoms behind it, like low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, acne, cardiovascular changes, most importantly, metabolic syndromes, infertility, diabetes, pregnancy complications. So the PCOS changes with you. Excessive hair growth acne will be in the adolescent stage. Fertility will be in the middle age of the life. That will lead to other complications. Eventually, it will lead to insulin resistance, diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases in the later stages of life. So we'll compare now the difference between normal ovary and the PCOS ovary. That is a major difference. In normal ovary, each month about 20 follicles that starts to grow. That is normal. Usually only one matures. At ovulation, mature egg that is released from the follicle moves to the fallopian tube, and mature follicle then releases the hormones, female hormones, progesterone, uterine line thickens, period flows. That is the normal cycle. That means the ovulation is occurring normally. In PCOS ovary, ovulation is not occurring. So body doesn't make hormones for an egg to mature. So if the egg is not getting matured, naturally ovulation is not taking place and cysts are forming. Follicles grow but none mature. Some remain as cysts. No egg release, no progesterone is formed, no female hormones is formed. Uterine lining doesn't thicken and normal ovulation doesn't take place. This is the basic difference between PCOS and the normal ovary. Normal ovary mein ovulation will occur normally with the normal level of hormonal releasing, and in PCOS there will be no ovulation behind it. Coming to the factors that causes PCOS, there are so many factors involved. First is the weakened immune system. Weakened immune system can be because of your underlying pathology of a disease also, your lifestyle also, and dietary habits also. To compensate that, we'll be going with a nutritious diet and supplements that boost immunity and exercising. Bad dietary choices, we'll switch to natural and organic foods. Accumulation of toxins, we'll be stop eating junk food. Genetic tendency, yes, there are also genes involved in PCOS. PCOS women are not able to fertile, but yeah, if the pregnancy occurs and if the normal pregnancy is also occurring, then they also have a chance that their child has PCOS in the later stages of life. So there is some link of genetic tendency over there. Resistance and obesity. For resistance and obesity, we have to meditate and exercise. Adolescents, a vulnerable group, definitely. That is stress, depression, food habits, overweight, obesity, lack of physical activity. Premature puberty is very common nowadays, can be a reason of PCOS also. Early diagnostic signs are mistakenly dismissed as no changes of adolescence. Normally, what happens? There are early diagnostic signs that the periods are irregular. more than 30 days, more than 35 days, more than 45 days. And we normally think that it's a normal life cycle. It happens, but it should not happen. So we need to find out the exact reason behind it, and then we can work on the interventions part. PCOS has genetic factor and environmental factor leading to menstrual irregularity, androgenemia, that is the high level of androgens in it, hyperinsulinemia, high level of insulin. Eventually, it will lead to infertility, hirsutism, acne, alopecia, that is the hair loss, metabolic syndrome, that is diabetes, and diabetes 2, hypertension, and cardiovascular symptoms. There's a difference between PCOS and PCOD, which many people don't know out there. When I was doing my master's thesis, I was also not knowing that. But after reading so much of articles, I found that they are completely different, and we need to diagnose them different so that the intervention will take place accordingly. PCOS is a metabolic syndrome. It is more serious. PCOD is a normal symptomatic disease. It is not that much serious. In PCOS, there is high risk of developing diabetes, cardiovascular issues, and obesity. In PCOD, there is not as such risk of it. Issue with fertility in PCOS is more, and issue with infertility in PCOD are quite less, but it is still there. The reason behind is because the ovulation is occurring place in PCOD, and PCOS ovulation is not happening properly. In PCOD, ovulation happens comparatively regularly. The symptoms are there in PCOD. The chances of developing diabetes is less, but the ovulation happens not comparatively regularly in the regular terms. Symptoms are visible at early stage in PCOS, and PCOD symptoms are not easily visible until and unless there is severe acne, there is severe obesity, or there is severe irregular menses. Then the difference plays a role. Coming to its diagnostic criteria, currently we are having three diagnostic criteria. One is NIOS that was developed in 1990, Rotterdam 2003, and Androgen Access PCOS Society was developed in 2006. If both criteria are met, there is both the criteria are: first is chronic anovulation, that is ovulation is not occurring place. Second is clinical or biochemical signs of hyperandrogenism, that is increased level of androgen, and we can test through the blood test only. Second is Rotterdam criteria, that is oligo anovulation. Evolution means that the some ovulation is taking place, but it is not on regular pattern. Clinical or biomechanical signs of hyperandrogenism, that is the excessive hair growth. Next is polycystic ovaries, that is on ultrasound. This is next we'll come to AE-PCOS Society 2006. First is clinical or biomechanical signs of hyperandrogenism. Second is ovarian dysfunction, that is oligogy, that we will. Coming to the main hormonal alterations that are occurring in PCOS. So in females of reproductive age, polycystic ovaries are developed when ovaries are stimulated to produce high concentration of male hormones. So the main reason behind the symptom and main reason behind the polycystic ovaries is male hormones, that is androgen, particularly testosterone, and by the release of excessive level of LH, that is by the anterior pituitary gland. High level of insulin in the blood with sensitive ovaries or with sex binding hormone results in increased level of androgen. That is, the increased level of androgen and the testosterone plays a very important role in the diagnosis of this increases as there is increased concentration of GnRH releasing hormone. So that will increase the level of insulin in the body, that further causes abnormalities in this. So overall, all the hormonal alteration using the insulin level also. Hyperinsulinemia increases GnRH frequency, LH over FSH, androgen production, and the decreases follicular maturation and sex binding hormone. All these hormonal alterations, all these signs and symptoms produces PCOS. There's master pituitary gland which releases the excess of LH hormone that causes increased production of male hormone from the ovaries, that is testosterone and androgen, which further causes failure of bursting of egg follicle from the ovaries, that is egg follicle is not taking place. Then there will be undischarged egg follicle that will become a cyst now, that is a mass. This process gets repeated during every menstrual cycle. That means in every menstrual cycle is getting delayed, signs and symptoms are increasing, and anovulation is taking place. And multiple cysts get collected, resulting in PCOD or PCOS. There are several complications of PCOS, but there are short term and long term complications of that. PCOS has reproductive, psychological, and metabolic features and is associated with many adverse health problems. The main complication of the syndrome in adolescents is infertility, obesity, impaired glucose tolerance, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular risk. Short-term complications include obesity, infertility, irregular menses, abnormal lipid levels, excessive hair growth, acne, hair fall, and thinning. Long-term includes diabetes mellitus, endometrial cancer, and cardiovascular disease. We will have intervention in PCOS according to the complication in a patient. Coming to impaired glucose tolerance and PCOS, that is diabetes. Insulin resistance in PCOS has been associated to later development of impaired glucose tolerance and type 2 diabetes. High rate of impaired glucose tolerance suggesting that there is further cases of diabetes mellitus will develop later. Evidence-related data demonstrate that the prevalence of type 2 in women diagnosed with PCOS is 7 times higher than the controls. The individuals with PCOS along with type 2 diabetes also has obesity. This is in the main researches that they will have obesity, but that is not certain. It is well established that obesity is observed in 60% of women with PCOS, and studies report that more than 20% of obese women with PCOS have impaired glucose tolerance after the age of 30. So the central distribution of fat, though, is not dependent to body mass index and is actually associated with higher insulin concentration. So, however, various studies have reported that the frequency of type 2 is found to be increased who even are not obese. So, I have seen a patient, an 18-year-old patient with type 2 diabetes, and she was taking insulin twice a day. So the severity of insulin and severity of diabetes is so much that we cannot even imagine in a PCOS patient. The PCOS and cardiovascular disease. Women with PCOS are more prone to develop cardiovascular disease other than the women of the same age, and they may be higher at the risk of cardiovascular events and death also. Increased insulin have a correlation with increased cardiovascular diseases. Increased insulin secretion appears to be the main reason for the increased cardiovascular risk of women with PCOS. In the absence of impaired glucose tolerance, so if the glucose tolerance is not occurring place regularly, pancreatic beta cell fails to function properly. That inversely correlates with the sex hormone binding globulin concentration, which leads to higher concentration of androgen in the body, and that increases chronic unopposed estrogen secretion. Obesity, hyperandrogenism, hyperlipidemia, and hyperinsulinemia caused by PCOS, they all are known for the risk factors for cardiovascular diseases. Abnormal lipoprotein profile in women with PCOS is significantly noted by various researchers, but the elevation of risk that young women with PCOS may therefore put them at risk, increased risk of developing atherosclerosis in the later stages of life. So in the early stages of life, they will have symptoms, minor symptoms of cardiovascular disease, but in the later stages of life, they will developing atherosclerosis, which further results in myocardial infarction. So the cycle goes on. The symptom increases, the insulin resistance increases, and the cardiovascular changes increase. Next, we'll come to endometrial cancer. Severe amenorrhea in the presence of premenopausal women, levels of estrogen, can lead to endometrial hyperplasia and carcinoma. This is according to the guidelines that were revised in 2013. The risk may be higher in developing endometrial cancer in patients with obesity, long-term use of unopposed estrogen, infertility, hypertension, and diabetes. All these factors, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, leads to endometrial cancer behind that. Several study reports might suggest that there is a connection between PCOS and increased risk of ovarian cancer, but there are not much of studies that have a direct correlation as diabetes and cardiovascular studies are having. So currently there is some risk of ovarian cancer, but not much. Coming to the most important part, that is the musculoskeletal changes. There are so many components in physical fitness. We need to evaluate that, and I evaluated that in my research, and I found that some of the changes were the responsible for all the body pains behind it, and we have to see that accordingly. So it has been shown that 65% of women with PCOS have high body mass index, can be because of the obesity factor behind that, which is exceeding 27. In addition to this, they have also have fat distribution in the abdominal region as an association with the metabolic abnormalities. Because they have metabolic abnormalities, they have abdominal fat in the abdominal region. Metabolic abnormalities like hypertension, dyslipidemia, insulin resistance, and glucose intolerance. So, Oreo ETL evaluated their cardiopulmonary functional capacity in young PCOS overweight patients. So, he concluded that VO2 maximum was the reason behind it, that the VO2 maximum oxygen consumption at anaerobic threshold as workload at peak exercise was significantly reduced in PCOS subject, that is compared to healthy. And he also found that the aerobic capacity was comparatively very low as compared to the normal individual. I reported that physical fitness of PCOS individuals was found to be relatively low as compared to the age match control. All the components of physical were evaluated, like body composition, flexibility, muscle endurance, are still needed to particular. The role of exercise. The PCOS women were not obese. Surprisingly, they were not obese. Around 70% of girls were having normal BMI. So they were not obese. So we cannot predict if the patient is obese and their fat percentage will be high. Yes, they have a correlation. If the patient is obese, their fat percentage will be high, but we cannot say according to my research also. Secondly, I checked with their flexibility and found that their flexibility was comparatively very low as to the normal individuals. Lifestyle plays a very important role in terms of flexibility, but we need to see what are the hormonal changes occurring in PCOS. Third, I checked with their muscle endurance and it was comparatively very low, same as compared to the normal individuals. Fourth, coming to their agility and their muscle endurance, they both were not comparatively so much low. There were not a significant difference in muscle strength and muscle endurance, muscle and agility. They were not significant difference. Coming to muscle strength, there were some studies that says that the muscle strength in PCOS patients is as same as the normal individuals or can be high. The reason many authors are giving that they have high level of androgen in the body that helps to gain that strength in the body. So the high level of androgen is the main reason behind that musculoskeletal change, that they have higher strength. But in my study, I concluded they have a significant difference, but that significant difference is not much that we can say that they have a higher difference. So overall comparative to all the physical components of the physical fitness, I evaluated that their cardiovascular fitness, their body composition were comparatively high, cardiovascular fitness was comparatively low, and their flexibility was comparatively low. Not much about their muscular endurance, their agility, and muscle strength. The reason behind all these skeletal changes play a very important role. This is the picture from one article, which is the main article I found in my research. Why the hormones are increasing and why the hormones are decreasing. This explains well actually. Androgen elevation and the impact of bone on it. So androgen elevation in PCOS is associated with reduced cortisol. There is reduced cortisol concentration that is leading to increase in androgen secretion, which could probably result in increased TNF and TNF factor, that is the bone formation factor, and it will impair the bone formation. Next is estrogen reduction. Estrogen is mainly required for the maintenance of bone health in women. So hence a reduction in estrogen could largely impair bone formation. So if estrogen is not there, bone formation will not occur and bone reabsorption will occur. And that will increase the reabsorption through several mechanisms. Next is elevated LH-FSH ratio. That is elevated LH-FSH ratio in PCOS women will lead to elevated androgen level, which could probably result in again in impaired bone formation. Next is increased insulin resistance. Insulin resistance reported in PCOS is found to increase the bone reabsorption. That will increase the bone reabsorption and decrease the bone formation behind it by decreasing the osteoprotein and increasing the Rankel expression. These are the physiology behind the bone formation and thus impair the bone formation. Vitamin D reduction. We all have studied that the vitamin reduction is common in younger population also right now. So I think that plays a very important role in PCOS patients also to rule out whether the musculoskeletal changes are occurring because of the PCOS or it is occurring because of the vitamin D reduction. So vitamin D reduction is an important calcitropic hormone that is required for the maintenance of bone. So hence a reduction in vitamin D can impair the bone formation. That can be happen in normal individuals also, and that can be happen in PCOS individual also. We have to rule out according to the diagnosis whether the vitamin D reduction is due to PCOS or that is due to the normal mechanism. Next is PTH elevation, which is required for the bone reabsorption. So elevated PTH increases the bone reabsorption and decreases the bone formation behind it. Growth hormone reduction, GH through IGF directly stimulates osteoblast cell for bone formation and osteoclast for differentiation. So hence a decreased GH can result in decreased bone remodeling. Cortisol reduction. Cortisol reduction could probably result in increased TNF factor and thus impair bone formation. So all the hormonal elevations and alterations that are occurring in PCOS, they are basically increasing the bone reabsorption and decreasing the bone formation behind it. So that is the main reason they are having that musculoskeletal changes. These are some of the dietary modifications that are to be made in PCOS patients. That is food to be taken, that is high fiber food like oats, green leafy vegetables, broccolis, coconuts, walnuts, almonds, beans, lentils, legumes, natural and unprocessed food like milk, curd, buttermilk, fruits of berries, family, fish oils, salmona, and tuna. Tuna is a kind of fish actually. Foods that are to be avoided, that is the sugary diet, fried food, fast food, excessive raw meat is to be avoided, solid fat, soda, caffeinated drinks, and alcohol. The foods that are to be avoided, they all produces hormonal alterations. So we need to avoid that food that are not acidic and that decreases the hormonal alterations. Exercise is a must for ladies with PCOS as it increases blood circulations in the body that enables the hormones to function normally and to maintain their regular levels. Uh, Physical activity, exercise participation of at least 150 minutes per week is advised for PCOS patients, especially with body mass index of greater than 28. Given the metabolic risk of PCOS and long-term metabolic benefits of exercise. Of this, 90 minutes per week should be aerobic activity to increase the cardiovascular fitness. That is to be done at moderate or high intensity. That is the mild intensity we cannot do. In PCOS patients, we need to shift to the moderate and the high intensity exercise, specifically for the aerobic capacity. For the stress management, we have managing the stress is very important, as PCOS symptoms leads to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem. So stress management plays a very important role. Using techniques like normal breathing exercises, lukewarm water bath with Epsom salt, relaxation exercises, meditation, and developing different hobbies for diverting the mind. Types of aerobic exercises which a PCOS patient can perform is cycling, swimming, walking, running, skipping, and hiking. For overall good health, 20 to 30 minutes per session of aerobic capacity is enough. That is 3 days per week. If the patient is not obese and if weight loss is not the goal. If the patient is obese, the dosimetry differs according to that. Wellness guidelines for a healthy lifestyle states very few individuals lose weight by participating in 30 minutes of exercise per day. Overweight people need 60 to 90 minutes of daily physical activity to manage their body weight effectively. To prevent weight gain, 60 minutes of daily activity is recommended. To maintain substantial weight loss, 90 minutes is recommended. And to gain health benefits, 30 minutes of daily activity is recommended. This is according to the current guidelines of PCOS. Normal stretching exercises. Stretching, as we know, increases the blood flow, increases the nutrient part in a particular organ on in a particular muscle. So stretching is also very important. These are the some of the stretches. These are the upper back stretch, upper stretching, upper body stretches, lower body stretches, and the back stretches particularly. So we can found that the all the muscles that can be targeted: abdominals, triceps, biceps, hamstrings, everything, calf. Next comes the strength training, very important. Resistance training plays a very important role, which we can implement according to the 1 RM test we do usually. But overall strength training, resistance training frequencies should be 2 to 3 days per week for 12 to 24 per week regularly. Intensity, initial 60 to 70 resistance of 1 repetition maximum, comprising 3 sets of 8 to 10 resistance stations. Resistance can be increased according to the intensity and the patient, how the patient responds to exercise. Time can be 30 to 45 minutes. There's all the strength training sizes like squats, planks, everything. Dumbbells, with dumbbells they can do, with resistance bands they can do, or in the home workout we can tell them. These are some of the yoga postures which we should follow. These all the posture leads to increase in blood flow to the mainly to the pelvic region. So that is the main important. We have to increase blood flow to the pelvic region, to the lower abdomen region, so that the normal physiological changes of menstrual cycle occurs. So that is our main target, to increase the physiology of the lower abdomen and to increase the physiology of the uterus behind that. So coming to the yoga poses, that is mild churning poses, that is Chakki Chalasana pose, then is Maharajna pose, that is cat and cow pose, that is butterfly pose, Madhakosana pose, and the child pose, that is Balasana pose. And the other one is the Malasana pose, that is the main pose for the stimulation of pelvic floor muscles. We need to target the pelvic floor muscles for the pelvic region. Pelvic floor muscle strengthening exercises, we can do Kegels, like in sitting, in standing, in stair climbing, we can do that. But there are some of the yoga postures, these are the yoga postures that really help out to increase the blood flow to that particular area. So overall, the summary, PCOS is a clinical condition which is basically characterized by menstrual irregularities, that is acne, hirsutism, that is hair growth, extra hair growth, hyperandrogenism, infertility, and various metabolic and endocrine changes. Prevalence of PCOS has increased in cities like Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, that is due to poor dietary habits and sedentary lifestyle. PCOS is associated with obesity, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes, dyslipidemia, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and endometrial carcinoma. Women with PCOS have higher fat mass, lean mass, cholesterol, waist-hip ratio, and reduced cardiopulmonary functional capacity. So due to all these factors, overall physical fitness of PCOS patient has found to be reduced, and we need to find out what are the musculoskeletal changes are we are finding as a physiotherapist, and so that we can implement the program accordingly. So if their flexibility is low, we have to check with the stretching exercises. If their aerobic capacity is low, so we have to check with the certain aerobic exercises. So when I was seeing patients, so I was noticing that I normally the patient is coming, a young girl was coming with normal neck pain or back pain, but certainly when interacting with her, I found that she's having PCOS. So the link between the PCOS and the normal neck pain and back pain should be linked, so that the overall pathology of the body can be changed. And PCOS is all. So if the flexibility is low, we need to focus with the stretching exercises. If the aerobic capacity is low, then we have to go with the aerobic exercises. So you need to rule out that what are the other musculoskeletal changes are there. So there are so many questionnaires out there of PCOS. So I would request all of you to please go through the current literature behind PCOS, because still as a physiotherapist, we have some limitation of data in the exercise program. We have data for the cardiovascular fitness, for the flexibility, but we don't have for data for the agility, for the muscle endurance right now. So you need to focus about all the parameters of the physical fitness, and then we can work accordingly as a physiotherapist. Thank you, Savita ma'am, for the opportunity to speak on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sonam. That was an exemplary explanation. Now, I would like to take a few questions from the audience. So, first question is, what are the current guidelines of PCOS?
The current guidelines, the symptoms, and the diagnostic criteria I have told is approximately the same, but currently they have added the feature that after the 8 years of menarche, no ultrasound scan is compulsory now. We can easily check through the symptoms and the biochemical tests. So after the 8 years of menarche, no need of ultrasound. Second, they have added that the overall menstrual cycle, if the girl is having till the 45 days, if the menstrual cycle is of till the 45 days, it is considered to be normal according to the today's lifestyle and today's dietary habits. So till 45 days, menstrual cycle is considered as normal. These 2 points they have added recently.
Okay, Sonam. Is the ultrasound is a main criteria of diagnosis?
No, ultrasound is not the main criteria of diagnosis. They're focusing mainly on the signs and symptoms and the biochemical test right now.
Okay. Okay. So all PCOS patients are obese normally?
The literature says that 60% are obese, but according to my research also, I have found that 60% were not obese. So there is a
60%.
limitation of data behind that. We need to rule it out. If the patient is obese, that means she's having PCOS. No, that doesn't mean that. We need to
Okay.
rule it out. Many of the patients are not obese, and then we have to find out with their symptoms that they have PCOS.
Thank you, Sonam. Can PCOS patient conceive, or is this condition is reversible?
Yes, the condition is reversible, and PCOS patients can conceive, but with medications and exercise and the fertility methods we have so many right now, IVF and everything. Yes, they can conceive, but we need to focus on all the parameters of the body. Yes, it is reversible also.
Thank you, Dr. Sonam, for clarifying our doubts. Now, I would like to ask you one personal question, Dr. Sonam. How well did Banarsi Das Chandiwala Institute of Physiotherapy prepare you for your current occupation?
That's a very wonderful question. I was waiting for that. As a student, I didn't understood many things, but as a teacher, I must say that it's very difficult. As a teacher, you learn so many things out there, and I was waiting for this opportunity to speak on PCOS, and I'm very happy that PCIB gave me this opportunity to speak on this topic. This is my start. This is my first webinar, and I'm very happy to be associated with you at this position. Thank you for making me so confident and making me punctual in life. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sonam. It was a pleasure having you as an esteemed resource person here. On behalf of Banarsi Das Chandiwala Institute of Physiotherapy, I would like to thank you for enlightening us. Now I request our audience kindly subscribe our YouTube channel for further study material, informative lectures, and many more things. Our next webinar is on 8th July on high performance sports. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have enjoyed today's session. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so
Sonam.
much.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Thank you.